Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri. Selamun aleyküm ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuh. Inshallah, we will continue with this 24th word, third branch, and we will continue with the 8th principle, inshallah.
We're reading from the 24th word, the third branch, the 8th principle. In this arena of trial and realm of examination, Almighty God, the absolutely wise one, conceals most important things in the midst of numerous others. And this is tied to many purposes, benefits, and instances of wisdom. For example, He has hidden the night of power in the whole of Ramadan, and the hour when prayers are answered in the whole of Friday, and well-accepted saints among the people generally, and the appointed hour in a person's lifetime, and the time of doomsday in the life of the world. For if the time of man's death had been specified, the first half of his life would be passed in absolute heedlessness, and the second in terror, like going step by step to the gallows. Whereas, for the balance between this world and the next to be preserved, and to remain perpetually between hope and fear, living and dying have to be possible every moment. In which case, 20 years of uncertain life are preferable to 1,000 years of life that are specified. Thus, the last day is the appointed hour of the world, the macro-anthropos. If the time had been specified, all the early and middle ages would have been plunged into absolute heedlessness, and the latter centuries into terror. Just as in his personal life man is concerned with the continued existence of his home and village, so in his social life, and as a member of mankind, he is concerned with the continued existence of the earth and the world. The Quran says, "The hour has drawn nigh." That is, doomsday is near. It's still not having come after 1,000 or this many years does not negate its closeness. Because doomsday is the appointed hour of the world, and in relation to the life of the world, 1 or 2,000 years are like 1 or 2 minutes in relation to a year. The hour of doomsday is not only the appointed hour of mankind, that it should be related to it and seen as distant. It is because of this that the absolutely wise one conceals doomsday in his knowledge among the 5 hidden things. It is due to the mystery of this vagueness that every age, including the age of the bliss, the age of the Prophet, people have been frightened of the end of the world. Some of them even said that the conditions had all but appeared. I guess we can stop here, according to Brother Bacon's suggestion. So, am I moderating as well? Is this what we agreed on?
Oh, yes, you're moderating, but like after reading this, so just to make the connection with the initial question, which is how to read narrations of the Prophet. So maybe we can read like 2 more paragraphs, the first question and the answer, so that it make a connection, like we make a connection with narrations of the Prophet. Like, again, this is just a suggestion.
Okay. I'll take your suggestion to heart. Thus, unfair people who do not know this truth say, why did the companions of the Prophet, with their vigilant hearts and keen sight, who had been taught all the details of the hereafter, suppose a fact that would occur 1,400 years later to be close to their century, as though their ideas had deviated 1,000 years from the truth? The answer, because through the effulgence of the Prophet's conversation, the companions thought of the hereafter more than anyone. And knowing the transience of the world and understanding the divine wisdom in the hour of doomsday being vague, they assumed the position of always awaiting the world's appointed hour and worked seriously for the hereafter. God's noble messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, repeating, "Expect doomsday, wait for it," was prophetic guidance arising from this wisdom. It was not a pronouncement of revelation concerning the specific time of its occurrence, and far from the truth. It was not a pronouncement of revelation concerning the specific time of its occurrence, and far from the truth. Okay, him saying expect doomsday, wait for it, was not far from the truth. Okay, the cause is one thing, and the wisdom is another. Thus, sayings of the prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, of this sort arise from the wisdom in certain things being indefinite. So that is the third branch, or part of it that we've read. It's a very, the eighth principle of the third branch. Already this is a very interesting reading so far. Like there's a few sentences I've already read that have caught my attention, which I guess just to, before we go to the beginning and start talking about them, maybe I'll raise these points. Like, for example, he says something like in the paragraph of thus unfair people who do not know this truth. He says in the middle of that paragraph, he says, so why did the companions of the prophet with their vigilant hearts and keen sight, like suppose a fact that would occur 1,400 years later to be close to their century? He's speaking as if the day of judgment has come or doomsday has come. I'm not sure, like the wording there. And then also in the previous page where the eighth principle starts, he says something like, in which case 20 years of uncertain life are preferable to 1,000 years of life that are specified. That makes me question it for myself, if that's true. And then another thing he says here, which, raises questions for me, he says like in the second paragraph, or maybe the third paragraph of the eighth principle, he says, if the time had been specified, all the early and middle ages would have been plunged into absolute heedlessness, and the latter centuries into terror. As if you're saying all the people that were not going to see doomsday would have been plunged into heedlessness, and the latter centuries into terror. I'm not really sure what Nursi is saying here, because at the end of, I almost give no thought to doomsday. I don't think anyone, or most people, don't really give it much of a thought to doomsday. Most people are just concerned with their own death, their own doomsday. And I know we're talking about the end of times here, so he's talking about the last day, the appointed hour of the world, where everything is the doomsday that in regard to everything. And I would say that I don't think people, let's say doomsday happens 500 years from now for certain, like I get such revelation comes from someone, or like it just for certain, then it wouldn't really affect me, because I'm still going to die. I still have my human problems at this time. Doesn't really affect those. So those were my initial questions regarding this. But we can go back to the beginning of the paragraph, or the beginning of the principle, and inshallah together we can try to understand this text, because already I'm very curious to see how we're going to interpret what Nursi has written here, what he's trying to say, how he's reading how is he reading these signs differently than others, or what's he trying to say here? That can help me, that can guide me, that where I can take the prophet's words as guidance for myself, which is what we were kind of talking about last week, how we had this issue where we were taking the prophets, even life, we were taking life very literally, and the prophet's words, we were taking it very literally, and this was blocking us off from being able to be guided from them. So like with the ox and the fish, I believe it was last week, we were talking about that, and how they were taking this like literally and physically as if it was that way. Like this was not guidance. So we should be trying to take the prophet's words as guidance, the world as guidance. So inshallah, we can try that. Okay, the beginning of the eighth principle. Unless anyone has some initial thoughts, I'll just continue from the first paragraph. Okay. So in this arena of trial and realm of examination, Almighty God, the absolutely wise one, conceals most important things in the midst of numerous others, and this is tied to many purposes, benefits, and instances of wisdom. So this reminds me of I believe it was around like the first principle. When we first started discussing this, we were talking about, again, how this is an arena of trial and examination, how you still you still have free will. Like things are not, he was saying something like how you separate coal from diamonds or something or along that sort, that you still have free will. It doesn't take the will away from the hand. When you see something, you can still choose to believe in it or not believe in it, or to submit to it or not submit to it. It's a realm of examination at the end of the day. And he's saying that he conceals important things in the midst of numerous others. For example, he has hidden the night of power in the whole of Ramadan, and the hour when prayers are answered in the whole of Friday, and well-accepted saints among the people generally, and the appointed hour in a person's lifetime, and the time of doomsday in the life of the world. Yeah, I mean, the night of power, this hour and Friday, these are things I've heard about. I'm sure we've all heard about from khutbahs, from other places, like hours. There's like an hour on Friday where all du'as are accepted. There's like Laylatul Qadr in Ramadan, which is a very blessed night. And then well-accepted saints among the people generally. If you told me or asked me, like, pick the one that looks different, I'd say that one. Like, well-accepted saints among the people generally. That one looks different. Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of it. And the appointed hour in a person's lifetime, and then time of doomsday in the life of the world. So again, these are just things that are unknown to us, that are concealed. Okay. For if the time of man's death had been specified, the first half of his life would be passed in absolute heedlessness, and the second in terror, like going step by step to the gallows. So I have to like think about this for myself. I would also, if you guys have opinions on this, like if your time of death had been specified, do you agree that you would have been in such a state? I'm not sure if I would. Like, technically, my time of death has been specified. Like, I know I'm going to die, even though I'm not like. I mean, actually, you can even say I feel like I'm invincible already, because like, generally, you don't never think about death. You're like, oh, it's never going to happen with me. And then things like, let's say the virus or other things come up, and then you remember that, oh, I might die. And then that's when you start acting more conscious, even. And then, but let's say from the second you were born, you were given a date. This is when you're going to die. For sure. I mean, I agree that it's always going to be constantly on your mind. I'm going to die at this date, because you don't feel invincible anymore, because you know for sure you're going to die. Like, it's very clear and concrete now. It's not like this abstract thing you can try to hide under the rug. So that's just me pushing back against Nursi, who I respect very much. But yes, Atik, go ahead.
Yeah, I can totally relate to, what he's saying about if the time were appointed, if we knew when we were going to die, we'll just, not care about it until we draw nearer and nearer. I had a little scare maybe recently where, like when all this Corona stuff is happening, I don't really understand it, because I myself I'm not too like, worried about the disease. It's somewhere out there in China, it's not anywhere near me, and like this quarantine business, I guess, seems a little extra, but that's just how I feel about it. But then on Sunday, I had a little scare because someone I knew, we broke quarantine rules, and she came over, and she's like a housekeeper at Chop, and she was like coughing, and like we just thought it was like a normal thing, just maybe she didn't have enough water or whatever. But then 2 days later, she's sick. The next day, I feel a little sick, and I'm like, oh my God, maybe I have this Corona thing that I was just not caring about. And so I had to, face the reality of, maybe I have this sickness. So yeah, I feel like I can relate to this heedless thing.
Oh, may God, inshallah, give you shifa. Brother Yusuf, go ahead.
Before I start, does this corona thing go through the microphone and the speaker? Just to make sure.
Well, it might be caused by 5G, so we can't rule out the possibility.
But then you use some mask, please. Atik, be responsible.
Okay, I'll speak through my shirt. It might be hard to hear me though.
So I was going to pick what Abdurrahman was picking on. So some saints. So in general, what I'm seeing in here is as if he's describing Qur'an's and Rasulullah's messengers. So how he teaches and how that teaching happens is very much related to how human is learning. Like teacher should adjust his teaching style according to how the students are learning, according to their levels, so on and so forth. So human is apparently learning by evaluating different options, by comparing, which requires searching. This is how learning is ordained for human. This is how we are set. There is no why for that, but this is how it is. So, which requires searching, right? Because you need to, as I see more options out there, I will evaluate more, and as comparing contrasts, as much as I see good, I start seeing evil, so on and so forth. Like if I see some evil somewhere, it will make me see more beautiful things. In the lack of anything evil, I wouldn't even notice good, etc., etc. So if we go with Abdurrahman's choice of this saints, for instance, if you go to, let's say, a meeting, a conference, an academic conference, and of course, let's say we are talking about Abdurrahman. Abdurrahman is going to there, him being this handsome guy with his like brand shirts and brand eyeglasses and brand everything, Nike shoes, whatever. Then him being cool in there, so he is looking for cool people, because it might be that cool people are going to be the ones that he is going to benefit from. But if somebody comes and tells him that, you know what, there are some people in this gathering which are, they look like losers, but actually they are the ones that are like the highest professors among these people. If such a thing is spoken to Abdurrahman's ear, then he will look for everyone. Where is this person? Then he will start searching. He will evaluate everybody's words as if, can this be that professor? He will try to find meaning in everybody's words. Otherwise, most likely, since people generally think that the way I am is the best, so the ones that are like me are the best. So then it would be possible that he will look for the people that are like wearing cool shirts to talk to. So likewise, in this life, to whom shall I sit down and listen to in order to understand the purpose of this life? Why am I here? How to make sense of this existence? Where am I going to? Why is this corona thing is coming? So to whom, for example, am I giving my ear to? This one is saying that saints of the Creator is hidden among people. So there are people out there which you wouldn't expect, but they are actually much more, if you like, knowledgeable or closer or pious to the Creator than you are, but you don't know who they are. So put this question mark to yourself so that you evaluate everybody's speech as if it has some value that's going to elevate you. I guess. And we can expand the same thing to time of Friday prayers. It's all for searching something. Since it's not identified which moment, which person, then you keep searching for it. And while searching is your education happening. So since human is designated as such, learning is designated for human as such, then both the Quran and the messenger speaks according to that. So leaves things vague intentionally. And this vagueness is not to identify a certain person. Actually, it is to not identify a certain person so that you search for it. While searching for it, you evaluate a lot others and learn from all.
Thank you for your comment. Yeah, so like when, I guess it's this, it was similar to how we're saying there is meaning behind things, but then you're saying that there is something that is important within this whole thing. Like there is an hour within Friday that is good, or there is a day that you will die. Some like you're going to die at one point, and so this gives it so that you can search for these things. Like there is one important man amongst this men, so you can search. Like there's like this. If you search, you're gonna find something. Like there's something there to be found. Type of idea there. Yes, Atik, go ahead.
I wanted to say, like, so yeah, like the night of power is important, you know, important special time of year, that there are saints among us that are especially good, and that there is an appointed hour that a person or every person has where he'll face death. But like we experience these things like all the time. It's not just one specific day that's good, right? There's moments that are good, right? There's like every Friday is good. And we don't need to wait till Friday to do good things. There could be a goodness every night, you know, when Allah descends from, you know, closer to the earth. There are exceptionally good people, but there's also just regular good people. There is a single death, but there's also micro death. Like our cells are constantly dying and being renewed. So I feel like if you're not searching for these, you know, black and white sort of things, like this one exceptional moment, you know, you're kind of, if you are looking for this one exceptional moment or thing or person, you're kind of missing out on all the rest of it in its smaller, lesser forms.
Yeah, actually, I think like based off what you said as well, like the little things, or it's not just one event in your life that's important. Actually, I think the purpose of concealing these things, or concealing an important thing amongst numerous others, or the idea behind this is to say that every moment of your life has something to it. Like there's something to look for, something to think about, something to be conscious about every moment of your life. It's not like you have some sort of break for this amount of time, and then after that this will happen, and so you should focus on that. Like, I guess Ramadan is a very clear example, but like 26 days of Ramadan, you just like live very normally as if Ramadan isn't happening. But then the 27th day, you do everything because it's Laylatul Qadr, like, or has a high chance of being Laylatul Qadr, this type of thing. And then again, you revert back. I think the idea here is to say that no, every moment of your life, every day of your life, actually, humans are dynamic. Your life is dynamic. Every moment has importance. It has meaning. It has something that you should care about. Yeah. So every little moment has a value, not just 1 hour on Friday. But it's like a push. It pushes you to. It's like someone's guiding you and telling you, there's an hour on Friday. Look for it. It's telling you. Maybe even in the search, like you're gonna realize actually every hour on Friday might even be good. It's kind of similar. It reminds me of this, actually, the idea or the methodology of La ilaha illallah. Like it's almost like saying there is one God that is the only God, amongst all of these false gods, let's let's say, and then you search for it or you look for it, and then, you know, in the search, the journey of it is actually, like, let's say we're in the journey of it, it's where you're learning the most, or you're experiencing the most, because you're looking at different things and you're saying that, and or I mean, you're in a search for one amongst the many type of thing. So it sort of made me think about that. And then continuing on, so thus the last day is the appointed hour of the world, the macro-anthropos. If the time had been specified, all the early and middle ages would have been plunged into absolute heedlessness, and the latter centuries into terror. Just as in his personal life, man is concerned with the continued existence of his home and village, so in his social life, and as a member of mankind, he is concerned with the continued existence of the earth and the world. So I would say, yeah, man is concerned with more than just his personal life. He's also concerned with the continuing existence of humankind. I mean, especially around these times where we're talking about colonizing Mars and saving the planet and these types of things. We're very worried about the continued existence of humans, and like whether that's even like possible, or are we gonna like mess it up? And you know, this is like a question on people's minds, and they care about it. So there's this idea that we need a continuation, something more than just, I guess, yeah, we need something more than like some type of eternalness. I mean, maybe this is the human quality that we search for eternalness, but we don't like things to end. We don't like death generally. We want things to continue. But again, I still disagree, or I don't really understand what Nursi's saying about the early and middle ages being plunged into absolute heedlessness and the latter centuries of terror. But unless any of you have something to say about that, I'll just continue. Yes, Brother Rika.
Alaikum. So this phrase reminded me my or our attitude against whatever happens. Like people say, okay, there's a pandemic. My half of the first half of my interaction with this pandemic is just being heedless. I don't care. You know, it's not real. I don't fear of that. I don't fear that. So I don't care, right? This is my attitude. Because it's not near to me. But once I start learning more and more and realize that I live with a person who's, in this risky group of people, so it becomes a terror for me, like the second half. So I guess, like, whether it is true in the scale of the generations or centuries, I don't know. But at the scale of my personal life, or even at the scale of one individual event, I can see that the heedlessness and then the terror. It's always there. For some, this heedlessness stays longer. Terror comes once they realize they made a big mistake. For others, heedlessness lasts shorter, and so on and so forth. But heedlessness and the terror, I guess it's always there with every event. Other than that, so actually, I can wait for this comment. So anyway, I will continue later, inshallah.
Atik, go ahead.
I wanted to say, yeah, this idea of having a deadline, of a specified time, like a deadline, causing heedlessness is very apparent in the way I live my life. You must not be a procrastinator. I mean, seeing as you have attended an Ivy League institution, but those of us that have not, we might be a little different. So I'm a very big procrastinator. If I know something is due at a specific time, I will not do it. I will not do it until I get really close to that to that deadline. And for me, yeah, it's just about having as much enjoyment as I can, and then saving the rest of the time as much that I need to for the task that is, you know, that I have to do. That's not the smartest thing to do, and it's not the best worldview, but that is a way some of us have live our lives.
I can assure you, I'm afflicted with such things as well, Atik. I think you're a very prestigious institute. I would assume a student such as yourself would not be faced with such illnesses, but apparently we all are. I was the question. So Brother Birkan's explanation about the coronavirus, actually, that now it makes things more clear to me, because that is the type of attitude we have had towards the coronavirus. You know, at first we were heedless, and now we're slightly going to terror type of thing. My question was more along the lines of like, maybe I'm diving too deep into this. It's, you know, the early and middle ages, those people are still faced with their own death. They're still faced with their own problems. They're still faced with. Okay, another way I can think about this though is, let's say I knew, you know, at age 35, the day of judgment was going to happen, or you know, the big day of judgment, like not my death. And I would have to say then, yeah, I have to agree that it would kind of put me into terror. Like even now, we're in the end of times. We're thinking about the end of times, you know, more earthquakes, more this and that. All of this is happening. People are like calling doomsday. And you kind of believe it too. You're like, oh, I think that's true. And then, yeah, it's kind of scary to think. For some reason, it's almost more scary than thinking about like your own death. Like your own death, you're almost unaware about. But then this idea of this big monster of doomsday is going to happen, it puts you into terror, as if it's going to be something so terrible. Yes, go ahead, Brother Vika.
So if we look at like at the very beginning, the first sentence, author says, in this arena of trial and realm of examination. So he says, okay, whatever follows, don't forget that we are in the arena of trial and realm of examination. So everything you experience makes sense only under the light of this reality. And what we are doing, we are studying, you know, how to read, interpret narrations of the prophet. And by doing so, we also trying to generalize this idea to have to interpret verses of the Quran, or have to interpret verses of creation. And author says, yes, there might be vagueness, specifically in the narrations of the prophet. He's talking about some specific narrations regarding the last day of judgment. There's a vagueness there, he says. But this vagueness makes perfect sense when you realize, when you remember that we are in the arena of trial and realm of examination. So, for instance, we are not in the realm of information. We are not in the realm of knowledge. Or we are not in the realm of, I don't know, manufacturing, whatever. It's trial and examination. So, like you are in the realm of, let's say, education, this kind of, right? So you go to, for instance, take an exam, and professor give you questions. Very interesting, right? It doesn't, like when you think about it, it doesn't make sense. He doesn't give you the answers. So what's the point? Like, you are giving me questions, why you are not giving me answers? You can ask. But then he would remind you that this is an exam. Like, the point of it is that you come up with answers, so that on the way you learn something, right? So asking for a clear answer together with the question doesn't make sense in that sense. So I guess we live the life in a very similar way. When we see a vagueness, when we cannot get a clear grasp of something, we start complaining, saying that why it's not that clear. Like, what does it mean? I don't understand it. But the point is already that you don't understand it, and maybe at first read, and try to understand it. And this trial, your effort, is the part of the education that you will learn along the way. The same way, it says there are some vagueness, like not being clear when it comes to Day of Judgment, when it comes to Laylatul Qadr, Night of Power, when it comes to a specific hour in the Juma, a Friday, because you are supposed to search, you are supposed to examine, you are supposed to try things, so that when doing so, while doing so, you will learn something. And that's the whole point. So whether you become successful or not, whether you are the most, the attractive guy or not, with the best job, or with the best children, whatever, doesn't make any sense at all. Doesn't count. Like they are not important. They are not the point. So you start your day and you start complaining why you are hungry. But this is the point. You are supposed to be hungry. You lose your job and you start complaining why I lost my job. How am I supposed to live in this world? Is my God, sustainer, trying me, like testing me in a negative sense? Why he's not giving me, the money I need? And so this is the point. You are not supposed to receive the money, and it will teach you something. Living in this world is not about getting money. It's not even getting fed up. But being fed, sorry, not fed up. The point is not eating the best food or even enough food. The point is knowing that you are sustained. And if you can learn this by eating food, yes, this is your way of trial. But if you are some other person who needs to be hungry to learn about the sustenance, then you become hungry. It's all about your trial and examination. So whatever you do, whatever you read as a narration, for instance, you have to take this account. The point is not to give you the exact date of Day of Judgment so that you get ready or whatever. Day of Judgment itself, like in a literal sense, doesn't make any, it doesn't matter at all, whether you know it or not. The point is having this mindset of trying to get prepared for Day of Judgment. The sense of being judged, or the fact that there is a judgment, there is, I keep forgetting the word, sorry. And anyway, the fact that there is a judgment is the point. So your mindset should understand this. Your mind should understand this, and you should be in this mindset. Otherwise, knowing anything doesn't matter at all. So, because I sent the email saying that reading the coronavirus, obviously it was a clickbait. Sorry for that, but let's make a connection for the sake of those who joined our discussion because of the title of the email. So we hear about this pandemic, and we either become heedless or live in terror. And the author says that you are missing something. The point is not being heedless or being in terror. Neither of them will give you anything. Just, because you show off saying that, oh, I don't care, I'm so, what is the opposite of being scared? Sorry. Help me, please.
Brave.
Yes, thank you. I'm so brave, I don't care. You're not getting the point. Or the vice versa. You are so, afraid, you are in terror, what I'm going to do with my health. Am I going to die? Again, you're not getting the point. The point is, as author says, going back and forth between hope and fear. So your mindset should be that you are looking for hope and you are in fear in a sense that you need help. You realize that you need help. This is the point. So if you do not, seeking help when you hear such a pandemic and say that, oh, I'm so brave, I don't care, then you're not getting your lesson. You are supposed to realize your weakness. You are supposed to, fear in the sense, not getting into terror, but the fear which will take you to your creator who can give help, who can protect you and the friends. It should take you closer to your creator. That's the whole point. If it's not, you are losing. Or vice versa, you are in terror. You don't know what to do. You just, hide in your home, not moving anywhere, crying all the time. I don't know. And it's not getting you closer to your Lord. You're not thankful for the event. You're not thankful for realizing your weaknesses. Still not getting any point there. As author says, when you have an experience, the point is not being heedless or in terror, but the point is searching for purpose, searching for, taking for next step in your education, getting closer and closer to your creator. Read the narrations with this in your mind, read verses with this in your mind, and read the verses of the creation with this in your mind. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you for those words. Brother Yusuf, okay, I saw you, the hand up. Go ahead, please.
So, I am also thinking about the reverse. So would Quran ever identify any of these? Like, would Quran say 2022 is the date for doomsday? Or, I don't know, you are going to die this day, that day. So this is, because still I am going with Abdurrahman's question about doomsday is not part of my daily worries anyways. And I guess exactly for that reason, Quran is reminding me of doomsday. It's saying that this should be something of your worries, but why? What is the wisdom behind it? So as author would also say in a few sentences later down, so there's a purpose in here. The idea is not to identify a date so that you know, or you just adjust your life accordingly. As he says, if Quran were to identify such a date, then it would sound like people will try to adjust themselves relative to that time. And as Atik was giving the example, this is pretty much how we as students generally do. If the exam date is set, so you start working for its exam night, or if you're a little bit more responsible, 2, 3, 5 days before. But many of the cases, right after the exam, everything is forgotten. So, but since this is not the purpose of Quran to identify that day, and from the point of view of training and this existence, it would be pointless. Then we need to ask the question, what is the point of my creator reminding me, or if you like, threatening me of doomsday? What's the point of that? And it sounds like, as Abdurrahman was saying, I am more concerned about my own death. That's true. But there is still something that's left. Let's say, oh, Zainab is going to stay after me. So I am leaving something behind. Still, people tend to find, if you ask to them, including me, some soothing, just for the idea that I am going to be remembered, or I am leaving some legacy behind, so on and so forth. But when this doomsday comes into the picture, when Quran says, you are going to die, but also there's not going to be anyone who remembers anything at some point. So because we are trying to build up things which are going to outlive ourselves. It might be an institution, it might be, I don't know, some books that we would like to write, the best music that we would like to compose, whatever, something that we would like to leave behind. But this verse is also reminding me that there is something, there would be a day, there's not even going to be a conscious being on this earth who is going to be cognizant of your composition or your, I don't know, institution. Nothing will remain. So check yourself. What is your purpose? How do you live this life? So be ready for your own death, but also be ready if tomorrow were to be that day and everything was annihilated. Are you going to be set with this? Are you going to be totally okay with this? Or your world is going to collapse, as I mean, now metaphorically using this, everything, or are you going to be super duper upset? I guess by reminding this, Quran is actually telling me that doomsday should be part of your concerns as well. And to be able to do that, Quran shouldn't be identifying that day too. Because identifying that day would be contradictory to the purposes of the Quran.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Talking like what we were asking, like think about this, like we're thinking about our own death generally, if even that, and doomsday generally doesn't really take much of our mental space. Like, and I was thinking, what's the difference between my death and doomsday? Like, and I saw that, you know, with my death, like it's like my non-existence, or let's say that's what I might fear, like it's my end. But then this doomsday, it carries this idea of a judgment, or as Brother Bikram was saying, you know, it's like you're going to be judged, or there is a reckoning to be had. Like the things you do in this world, the way you act and how you live, it does have a consequence. It is being taken. There's a record of it, and it will be noted. Like someone's going to judge you, let's say. So there's like more than just, you know, you're going to non-existence type of thing. It like reminds you that one, yes, there's a death that comes before it, and then a resurrection, and then the judgment. The fact that you know, are you, as Brother Yusuf was saying, like, are you okay with like what you've done? Are you okay with the world? You know, what your actions. It makes you reconsider and reevaluate your life. So yeah, maybe in some sense, like since, you know, doomsday, we could say is like something that makes you think about judgment, think about your life and how you've been living, and like, you know, in some ways you could even say like coronavirus might be such a thing. Like you might, you know, it might be a kind of like a catalyst for some people, like to push them and be like, how have I been living my life? You know, because this is sort of not just your death, this is like the doomsday of the world, you could say. Not really, but it could be like it's similar, and it might, you know, it might be, it should be like for you to examine yourself. You know, for you to, like, as trial in a realm of examination, it should be something for you to examine yourself and see if you're actually living this life as it should be living. And it's good because you're isolated at home, so you have a lot of time to do it. Okay, we can continue on, inshallah. Brother Yusuf, go ahead.
I was just going to say that Brother Asim is not speaking for weeks, so inshallah before the end of discussion today, are we going to hear his beautiful voice? Just wanted to remind. Before the end of times, before the doomsday.
Yes, I think one of the signs of the end of times would be if Asim spoke. So,
you guys are very funny, actually. No, because you know, doomsday has like a different connotation from what everybody is thinking. So if one is involved in whatever world or whatever discipline that they're in, as we were talking about, there was an example given, if your specialty is in a particular thing and you're deeply involved in that, then doomsday for many, like the traders right now, if the market goes down, that's like they feel like it's their doomsday. But but for for some people who are in the healthcare, this may be like the apocalypse or something, which is like a nightmare for many healthcare workers, from what I'm at least some people are putting it that way. But for the human beings and the ones who are concerned with their life and existence, yes, every moment becomes a very valuable thing, because that's what their concern is about. So whatever you're concerned with, that is what you will be taking care of, and that is how you will be really looking for, in terms of when the doomsday for you is in terms of what your existence and is being more, in terms of how much value you see in your existence. But if you, again, if your concern is more with the your existence, yeah, then doomsday is actually what the Quranic version or the prophetic version of what the doomsday would mean, in terms of how you actually are going to be accountable, in terms of how you are passing your time, how you're using the tools and the qualities that you are given, and what they entail for you, how you see them and use them. Sorry, just wanted to make you hear my voice. It's not the doomsday, at least, but the moment has passed, so it was a doomsday for that moment.
Oh, thank you. That was a beautiful comment. I'm glad that Brother Yusuf prodded you into that. Which actually, it ties up very well to the next paragraph, or the next sentence. It says, the Quran says the hour has drawn nigh. The Quran is speaking about, well, the hour is in capitals here, so this is the doomsday has drawn nigh. And since the methodology of how we read Quran and how it's speaking to us, it's something relevant to us. It's from an absolute speech. It's a guidance for us, among many other things. So like as you were saying, like your doomsday is like the thing that you're so focused on, let's say stocks, or your idea of life, or your work, your job, all these other things you're so focused on, and then it just like kind of crumbles, and that's your doomsday for that thing. So everything has its doomsday. You were saying like the second has its doomsday. It's interesting that I guess in doomsday, in the idea of this, let's say, judgment idea aspect of it, or this examination aspect of it, like everything has its end, where you will be judged on how you acted, or like there will be a consequence of the way you acted. Like if you're acting in a way that is contradictory to yourself, or if you're acting in a wrong way, then you will figure it out, or it will come, an hour will come where that will be made apparent to you. Thank you for that. And then I'll just continue on with the reading then. But please raise your hand whenever you would like. That is, doomsday is near. From the Quran verse. It's still not having come after 1,000 or this many years does not negate its closeness. Because doomsday is the appointed hour of the world, and in relation to the life of the world, 1 or 2,000 years are like 1 or 2 minutes in relation to a year. The hour of doomsday is not only the appointed hour of mankind, that it should be related to it and seen as distant. The hour of doomsday is not only the appointed hour of mankind, that it should be related to it and seen as distant. It is because of this that the absolutely wise one conceals doomsday in his knowledge among the 5 hidden things. It is due to the mystery of this vagueness that every age, including the age of the bliss, the age of the prophet, people have been frightened of the end of the world. Some of them even said that the conditions had all but appeared. So the interesting part of this paragraph, or what caught my attention, is the hour of doomsday is not only the appointed hour of mankind, that it should be related to it and seen as distant. He's saying that in relation to the history of the world, which is, let's say, billions and billions of years, or actually the world is like millions, I guess, but let's say the universe is billions. 1,000 or 2,000 years is nothing. It's like a minute or two. It's very insignificant. So it doesn't negate the fact that doomsday is near, as the Quran is saying. So there's like a interpretation of the Quran's verse almost, let's say, literally here, where you're also like, if he doesn't negate the fact that it can also be interpreted that way, he's also saying that, taken as if doomsday in the normal sense, at the end of this earth and the universe, this verse still holds true. It is still true because, in the whole relation of beginning of time, let's say, 1,000 or 2,000 years is very little amount of time. He takes this type of interpretation of the Quran, which is interesting too, because we were talking about not taking things literally in the previous principle. And then here, he takes it literally, but in a more scientific sense, I could say, where he's saying no, near is in relation to the age of the world rather than age of mankind, or age of the universe rather than age of mankind. Those are my thoughts on this. I will continue unless someone would like to share their thoughts. Thus, unfair people who do not know this truth say, why did the companions of the Prophet, with their vigilant hearts and keen sight, who had been taught all the details of the hereafter, suppose a fact that would occur 1,400 years later to be close to their century, as though their ideas had deviated 1,000 years from the truth? Well, it still hasn't occurred, so I don't know why he's saying a fact that would occur 1,400 years later. As far as I know, it hasn't occurred. As though their ideas had deviated 1,000 years from the truth. So that's the question. So why didn't the companions know about this? Or why did they mistakenly think doomsday was back then, 1,400 years ago? Because they were obviously wrong, right? We're still alive. The answer, because through the effulgence of the Prophet's conversation, the companions thought of the hereafter more than anyone. And knowing the transience of the world and understanding the divine wisdom in the hour of doomsday being vague, they assumed the position of always awaiting the world's appointed hour and worked seriously for the hereafter. God's noble messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, repeating, expect doomsday, wait for it, was prophetic guidance arising from this wisdom. It was not a pronouncement of revelation concerning the specific time of its occurrence, and far from the truth. The cause is one thing, and the wisdom is an other. Thus, sayings of the Prophet, peace be upon him, of this sort arise from the wisdom in certain things being indefinite. So interestingly here, well, first of all, it goes into how the companions, they did see this as a realm of examination, of trial. They always thought about the hereafter because of the conversation with the Prophet, because of the message of the Prophet, and like, let's say, his message in a holistic sense, through his words, through his actions. So they thought about the hereafter. He was a reminder of the hereafter for them. He reminded of them, he guided them in that sense. So when they read the Quran, they understood that they need to be seeking. They need to be also, working seriously, as it says, for the hereafter. They can't be heedless. And then what caught my attention in the next sentence is, now the messenger says, expect doomsday, wait for it. And Nursi is saying, it was not a pronouncement of revelation concerning the specific times of its occurrence, and far from the truth. So it's saying, the Prophet saying, wait for it, had nothing to do with the specific times of its occurrence. Or at least it was not meant to be taken that way. Like, he was not speaking of a specific time. But whereas before for the Quran's verse, he almost made an explanation talking about time. He said that in terms of time, the Quran is still valid. But then for the messenger's words, he's saying that it wasn't an interpretation, or it wasn't something said to like specify a time of its occurrence, of doomsday's occurrence. So that caught my attention, how it was different. I don't know if you have any comments on that difference. In the last two sentences, the cause is one thing and the wisdom is another. I'm not sure I understand that. And then, thus sayings of the Prophet of this sort arise from the wisdom and certain things being different. Yeah, someone could also explain the last two sentences. Atik, go ahead, please.
I understood the last two sentences like, it's talking about the Prophet said, expect doomsday, but he didn't mean, he was talking to the companions. And so if someone interpreted it literally, it would be like he told the companions specifically to wait for doomsday as if it would occur within their lifetime, but it wasn't a literal command. It was more of a wisdom, as in a way to live their life, that they should live their life waiting for doomsday and expecting it. And so that even for the people that live after the companions, this hadith, this command or advice is still relevant, even if we don't expect doomsday to occur within our own lives.
Yeah, it's almost like saying it's a state that you should be in, that you should be in a state of expecting doomsday, a state of waiting for it. And also, Nur uses the words, it was prophetic guidance. So there is a guidance to be in such a state, rather than, again, like waiting for an exam type of scenario we were talking about before, but this is more of a state to be in continuously. Okay, I can just move on. I'm moving a bit fast, I think, but if no one has objections, I'll just keep moving on then. It is also due to this mystery that they expected the individuals who will come at the end of time, like the Mahdi and Sufyan, long beforehand. And even in the time of the generation succeeding the Prophet, and hoped to live long enough to see them. They hoped to see them. Some of the saints even said that they had passed, like the end of the world. Divine wisdom requires that the times of these individuals are not specified either, because every age is in need of the Mahdi's meaning, for he strengthens morale and saves the people from despair. Every century has to have a share of this meaning, in order that people should not heedlessly follow evil, and the reins of the soul should not be left free in indifference. Every century, the fearsome individuals who come to lead strife must be shrunk from and feared. If they had been specified, the benefits of general guidance would have been more. Yeah, I mean, this is something. So the Prophet is almost very distant to us, 1400 years ago type of thing. And we want teachers, we want people that can guide us, that are much closer to us, that also speak to us in a very specific way, like concerning our time, like the problems of our time. Like, in some century, it might have been some scholar in the 13th century or something. And then maybe in the 19th or 20th century, for some people, it might be Nursi, or it might be other people. Like, there's these people that we search, these teachers that we search, that we need guidance from. Every generation does. Someone that can be more firsthand to us than the Prophet, like some of the Prophet's students. And also, in the beginning, it talks about how the companions. So, I mean, I'm just giving out my thoughts just to fill in the time. I hope you all chime in when you can. But it talks about how the companions, they were expecting to see, or they wanted to see, or they were waiting for the Mahdi and the Sufyan. They hoped to live long enough to see them. Like, there's like a hope to see them. which was interesting to me because like hoping to see them is also in line with the fact that, you know, Day of Judgment is coming, and Day of Judgment is type of like a, you know, it's a terror. It puts some terror into you, this idea of Day of Judgment. So like hoping to see the Mehdi and Sufyan. So the kind of mindset they must have had, or this isn't the companions, these are the generations succeeding the Prophet, the kind of mindset you need to have to hope to see them. I'm not, yeah, Atik, go ahead.
I like the idea that, you know, that these times and peoples aren't specified because they're, you know, for every era there will exist, you know, some sort of strife and those that oppose it, right? And like, you know, I personally have not been, or where we're at in America, you know, people are comparing, you know, are saying Trump is like a tyrannical dictator and this and that. And I personally may have been indifferent to it, despite him, you know, actually doing terrible things like separating kids from their parents. But my indifference comes from knowing that there's a lot much worse going on in like Syria or other parts of the world. But that may not be the best thing, because you shouldn't be indifferent to oppression, even if it's relative. But the thing is, like, living in the world where all this stuff is going on, there's a hopeful message that somebody will come out and save the people. And so it doesn't have to be the Mahdi, but just, you know, in the relative era that we're in, somebody will, you know, there's hope for us.
Thank you, Atik. You've been very generous with your comments. Thank you for helping me. And also, I agree about your point on indifference. This idea, generally, we can maybe be indifferent to evil that's happening in the world. And when we look for, let's say, Sufyan or some other type of terror within our current state, like let's say we're looking for Yajuj Majuj or the other ends of times, like we're looking at these, and you know, we're not indifferent to these events that are happening. Like when an earthquake happens or a hurricane happens, or you know, some, you know, you get television and radio and all this and airplanes, like you see these as the signs of the Day of Judgment. And it makes you more conscious. And I'm guessing in previous generations, maybe they even saw those signs in life, and it made them more conscious. Like it made them, we're not indifferent. It gives it added meaning to like the fact that an airplane exists or like the radios exist. Like it gives us, we put added meaning onto it and makes us more conscious. Brother Bikram?
So there are 2 points I want to make. One thing is related to your earlier question about his kind of scientific explanations about the years and so on. And now here he's doing something similar when talking about Mehdi Sufyan. He's like obviously is talking about again the way of living, that you should be looking for such a person, or you should be looking for such an idea, not even person. So he's making the abstraction, that's for sure. But at the same time, he's talking about Mehdi and Sufyan as people, like as persons. So in both cases, I guess this is a kind of unique feature of Nursi, as far as I see, is that, yes, he gives all these interpretations. He says, you know, we shouldn't read things literally. The guidance is what is important and so on. But at the same time, he does not deny the meaning at the surface value as well. He doesn't say, oh, this is, you know, stupid, silly thing. Don't believe it. Doomsday is not about, you know, end of the universe, or Mehdi is not a person. And he doesn't say that. even the way he writes, at least the way I understand, it might be different from person to person, but when I read him, he says, like, I do not deny that the possibility, or the fact, even not possibility, that universe will end one day. And there will be a judgment day or doomsday in the absolute sense. And again, there are narrations about the person called Mehdi coming to, earth. And he says, like, I'm not denying this. Why should I deny? Like, I have any, let's say, information or no data to deny it, to say that, no, such a person will not come. He says, yes, that might be the case, but most of my writings will not concern about this person, but they will concern about what it refers, what it represents, what he represents or she represents. This is what I am mostly concerned, but at the same time, I do not take such narrations any lightly, so I don't have any reason to deny them. On top of it, as like now these are my words, of course, not Nursi's, but at the same time, I have the respect to the Prophet. So whatever he said, it might have a literal meaning as well. But does it matter for me? Like, I'm not an historian, or I'm not a futurist, so I'm not concerned about that much, about this specific person. But what I am concerned is the fact that I need such a person or idea. I need the idea of Mehdi or Sufyan. This is what matters to me. So this is the first point. The second point, it's interesting, it's even funny that in the previous paragraphs he says companions took it very seriously and they were looking for doomsday in their lifetime. He says, although it would occur 1400 years later, he says. So text is not in front of me, currently, sorry. So I can't remember the exact phrase, but this is the meaning I remember. He says, although it would occur 1400 years later, they took it seriously that it would occur in their lifetime. So wait a second, like, he's referring to his lifetime and saying that doomsday would occur in his lifetime, and we know that it didn't. So again, just like companions, I guess this is very interesting nuance, that just like companions, he was also taking so serious and saying that, yes, I'm waiting for doomsday in my lifetime. I guess similarly, he's giving us this message that you all, regardless of what year you live, you should be looking for it. Yes, we say, I don't care much because, it's not my main concern and so on, but he says it should be your concern. You should take it so serious that you should be sure that doomsday will occur in your lifetime. You should be sure about that. Same thing, Mehdi, Sufyan, I don't care much about such characters and so on. Author says, no, you should be. This is part of trial and examination. If you are not worried about what's happening around you, and if you are not looking for savior as an idea or as a person, doesn't matter. If you are not searching for being saved, then you're missing something. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you as well. So we have a comment. Master Bitcoin, that is an astute observation. I am not surprised. Mashallah. I must thumbs up to that. Yes. Very great. Jokes aside, let's continue. So I think we left off, the next paragraph. Now, the difference in the narrations about individuals like the Mahdi and their meaning is this. Those who expounded hadiths applied the text of the hadiths to their own interpretations and commentaries. For example, since the center of power at that time was Damascus or Medina, they imagined the events connected with the Mahdi and Sufyan in places like Basra, Kufa, and Syria, which were in the region of those centers, and expounded them accordingly. Moreover, they imagined the mighty works belonging to the collective identity or community which those individuals represent to be in their persons and expounded them in that way, so that they ascribed a form to them whereby when those extraordinary individuals appear, everyone will recognize them. However, as we said, this world is the arena of trial. The door is open to the reason, but the will is not taken from the hand. So when those individuals, and even the terrible Dajjal, appear, many people, and himself even, will not know to start with that he is the Dajjal. Many people and himself even will not know to start, or at the beginning, that he is the Dajjal. Those individuals of the end of time will be known through the insight and light of belief. So here, he's talking about the differences in the narrations about individuals like the Mahdi, and he's saying that the interpreters, or like the ones who expounded on the hadiths, they had their own interpretations and their commentaries, and he's saying like why they might have had that, like they might have been imagining certain like ideologies, or let's say the collective identities of a community, and they ascribed a form to them based on these collective identities, and said like everyone will recognize them because they will be as such. But then Nursi is saying that this world, or as he's been saying before too, this world is an arena of trial, of examination. You have your reason, but like it's not, let's say, you still have a choice. You can still make a choice. It's not like I guess, it's interesting because just based on the things I've heard about Day of Judgment, some things are written on people's foreheads and all these signs, and the way it explained, it's like it'll be so clear, like the Dajjal will be so clear, a river of water and flames behind him, it's just very clear. It should be so obvious that he's the Dajjal. That's the type of idea that we have, because like when we think about it literally. But I guess literally, he just be another human, or he just taking the sense that this is relevant to us. He could just be anyone. Like it could, like, you might look normal even, but when you look, as he says at the end of the paragraph, with this light of belief, the insight that the light of belief gives you, then that's when potentially you can see that river of flame and water and all those other things, like all those other seemingly very clear signs actually do become clear once you take this perspective of belief. And yeah, like generally, I think the way we also interpret Dajjal as like, for us relevance, like, one eye type of thing, where you're only looking literally at this world, you're not seeing the meaning behind it. And when you look with the light of belief, like let's say anything can become the Dajjal for you. Like when you look at a flower, the flower, or the idea, even the idea of like just looking at the world for itself, like thinking things have value in themselves. This is a type of Dajjal idea. But then with belief, you don't look with just one eye, you see both aspects of it. So you can, and since you can look with two eyes, I guess you realize when people are looking with one eye, you're exposed to more. I don't know. I'm just speaking. If no comments, I will continue. Okay. It is narrated in a hadith about the Dajjal, who is one of the signs of the end of time, His first day is like a year, his second day like a month, his third day like a week, and his fourth day like other days. When he appears, the world will appear. He will travel the world in 40 days. Some unfair people have said about this narration that it is impossible, God forbid, and have gone as far as denying and declaring it null, whereas the knowledge of it is with God. The reality of it must be this. It indicates the appearance of an individual from the north who will come to lead a great current issuing forth from the godless ideas of naturalism in the north, where the world of unbelief is at its densest and who will be atheist. There is an instance of wisdom in this, for in the latitudes close to the North Pole, the whole year is 1 day and 1 night. There are 6 months of night and 6 months of day. 1 day of the Dajjal is a year, alludes to his appearance close to those latitudes. What is meant from his second day is a month, is that passing in this direction from the north, it sometimes happens that for a month in the summer the sun does not set. This suggests that the Dajjal will emerge in the north and invade southwards towards the civilized world. By attributing the day to the Dajjal, it points to this. He comes further in this direction, and the sun does not set for a week. And so it continues until there are 3 hours between its rising and setting. While being held as a prisoner of war in Russia, I was in such a place. Close to us was a place where the sun did not set for a week. They used to go there to watch it. As for the part when the Dajjal appears, all the world will hear of it. The telegraph and radio have solved this. As for his traveling the world in 40 days, the railway and aeroplane, which are his mounts, have solved. Deniers who formerly considered these two statements to be impossible now see them as commonplace. Very interesting 2 paragraphs from Nursi. I'm thinking, why does Nursi, since we are taking the Prophet's words as guidance, and he's the one that is even telling us to do this, warning us about this, I'm thinking why he gives such an explanation. In the beginning we were talking about people who denied the narrations because they thought it was impossible or something, and he was saying, like, even if there's nothing to disprove it, you should at least just accept it or submit to it, type of thing. So I think in like the first level, he's just trying to say that this is very possible just from the standard of how the sun moves around Earth and how you can move on the landscape. Like, you can even interpret it in such a sense, and you can say that it's possible. Like, he's saying, to say this is impossible doesn't make sense. Like, this does make sense in the literal sense. So I think that's like the first level of meaning, that he's at least trying to prove that it's possible. Brother Vikram, please go ahead.
So maybe one remark about the word possible. Yes, like when we read it, it says even with within the worldly causal relationships, whatever, it is possible. But I prefer reading such things from the reverse direction, reverse direction, whatever, and say that, I guess the author is saying, so there are some people who are so, who are lost with their reasoning. So the only thing they care is reasoning. And they are, what was the word, enamored with their mind, with their reasoning. And when they hear such things, such quote-unquote miracles, they say, that doesn't make sense. But author here says, like, don't you see all these miracles that you already experience? Everything in your life is miracle. There is such thing as train. There is such thing as plane. Isn't it a miracle that you can move from one continent to another continent in 1 hour or 2? Or if it is, there's an ocean between them, 10 hours. Isn't this a miracle? So can't you see we already traveling world within, less than 24 hours? You observing all these miracles, and with your, limited mind, you still cannot understand that everything in life is a miracle. So when you hear a miracle, don't be stupid. Don't say that, oh, this is very extraordinary thing. It cannot happen. Because everything is happening in a miraculous way already.
Yeah, thank you. That actually helps a lot. Such a reading, this idea that, yeah, all these things that are already existent or that exist, like the fact that, the sun doesn't set in the North Pole, like, or it sets once, these types of things. Just so this should make us amazed, and it should be a miracle. And then as you walk down, it's less, the days are more frequent, they get more frequent. And that idea that everything is a miracle. Yeah. Thank you for that comment. That actually helped a lot. I will keep continuing. I will keep walking down from the North Pole. Haha. Okay. Since in another treatise I have written in some detail about Gog and Magog and the barrier, which are among the signs of the end of the world, I refer readers to those. And here only say this: there are narrations stating that the tribes known as the Manchurians and Mongols, who threw human society into chaos and were the cause of the building of the Great Wall of China, will again overturn human civilization close to doomsday with an idea like anarchy. There are narrations stating that the tribes will again overturn human civilizations close to doomsday with an idea like anarchy. Is there such a narration saying that an idea like anarchy? Is this his interpretation of a narration? An idea like anarchy. Okay, some atheists say, where are the tribes that perform these extraordinary acts and that will perform them? The answer: a calamity like locusts appears in one season in enormous numbers. Then on the change of the seasons, those numerous tribes which disrupt the country consign their reality to a few limited individuals. Then, when the time comes at the divine command, great numbers appear from those limited individuals and embark on the same corruption, as though the reality of their national identity is fined down but not destroyed, and when the time arrives, it re-emerges. In just the same way, those same tribes which overturned the world at one time will, when the time comes again, overturn human civilization with divine permission. But what impels them will be in a different form. None knows the unseen save God. So taking the mindset of how we read, how like we interpreted the Dajjal paragraph, this idea of Gog and Magog and the barrier. So he takes that, he brings us to this something that we witness, these locusts that, they come. I guess there's some locusts that come every 7 years or 17 years, around something like that, and they come in huge numbers. And he's like giving the similarity that this already is happening. Like we can see that such, let's say, miracle or such a great event as locusts are happening, and that if God wills, it will happen with another tribe. Like this isn't something unbelievable. It's as, however, it's as like easy a feat or as possible as the locusts are, which we take as granted, which we say will happen. So it's nonsense to think that it's not going to happen, or where are these people? We say like, I'm just going back to my like Sunday school teaching. Like, where are these people stuck under a mountain, in a cave or something, that are going to come out? We have like these kind of like questions.
we don't really believe in it type of thing. Like, how will this happen? But then, the answer is, if God wills, it will happen, because we already see that it happens with locusts. It already happens with the coronavirus. It just came out of nowhere, and now it's all around the globe. It just happened. It didn't just happen, but it happened by God's will, by the divine command. So just as the coronavirus happened, then Gog and Magog can happen. Yes, a very long eighth principle we covered in one sitting. Alhamdulillah. Yes, Brother Yusuf, go ahead.
So overall, so I see that this section, the eighth principle, is as if consisting of two major parts. In the first part, he said there are certain messages of the messenger, and people criticize those messages because they look at what is being spoken, but not why it is being spoken. There was a very heavy emphasis of wisdom in such speeches. And he said, once you catch this wisdom in the speech, why he spoke as such, what was his purpose, then in the second part of the text, he gave examples of this wisdom for himself in his age. So initially he said that the messenger is, or also the revelation, speaks in this way to keep you awake in your education, so that you do not get just overly relaxed or just ignore your education and dive into heedlessness. And then he said, okay, let's take a few of those narrations and see what it means in my age. So what does it mean that Mahdi is going to come, or Dajjal is going to come? What is the point of that? So again, he first starts with saying why, what is the wisdom behind such news, is that I am in need of someone to remind me or give me hope that bad days are going to pass, and then messenger who didn't die, there is going to be people who is going to carry, if you like, the flag of messengerhood, because I am in need of guidance, and there are going to be people like Paul-like people. What I mean by Paul is not St. Paul, like Paul of a flag, like who are distinguishable from the rest in some sense, in the sense that you are going to, if you are searching for guidance, you will find them. This is why he said those individuals of the end of time will be known through the insight and light of belief. So they are knowable. It's not that they are unknown totally to you, but they are invisible to common eye. They are visible to the eye of belief, meaning that if I am in search of guidance, if I'm convinced that there must exist a guidance, there must exist a messenger, there must exist a revelation, then I would know what to search for. I will have clues to identify such people. Otherwise, I wouldn't know, because, for example, if I am, again using Quran's terminology, if I am living life like a cattle, the only thing I will see would be grass in this existence. But if I am living this life as a human and trying to say that what's happening in here, why am I here, where am I going, there must be someone who is going to help me with all those answers, and this existence seems to be well ordered, perfectly balanced, there must be, like, the owner of this existence must exist, such a being must exist, and he must talk to me as well. So once I have these, then I would have some definitions for what to look for, what sort of a thing I am after. Then he says, okay, given this, now let's take the messenger's guidance and see how it applies. Because if I don't have those descriptions and I simply look at the narrations from the messenger, and I would say, well, first day is a year, well, it sucks. It doesn't make any sense. But if I look at it from that other perspective, then I would do what Nursi is doing in here. Says, what does it mean that a day is a year? And in his way of interpretation, he says, well, it looks like this Dajjal is going to come from north. He will come downwards. This is one way to interpret it. And in general, Nursi, for his time, was interpreting this ideology of socialism, communism, as Dajjal of his time, because unbelief was quite pretty much just occupying the whole earth under this flag. And throughout his life, Nursi was fighting against this ideology. So if you can identify where the source of problem is, and then you say, okay, this is what it sounds like, this fits to the description. And then he says, okay, this is the one that Rasulullah was talking about. This is the one that Sahaba was saying that, oh, if only we were at the time of this Dajjal so that we fight against him. He says, okay, it looks like I am at the time of a Dajjal. This very well fits to the description. So this is the one to fight against. And he got the guidance and he made his fight. So then, I mean, of course, you can come up with different descriptions for that. Like another interpretation that comes to my mind is just the stages is as if the first day of this Dajjal is a year. So as if it's just over time, it's becoming mundane. Initially, it's just taking too much time to, or in the first stage of it, it's giving, in a single day, it is making the harm of a year. In its second stage, it is making the harm of a week or month. So like initially, and you can maybe think of it coronavirus for this like that. So in the very initial phases of this disease, it killed thousands or millions. In its second stage, it just diminished. But likewise, such ideologies, when it first comes out, and especially if you are unprepared, meaning that if there's no Mahdi-like figures or ideologies that's going to fight against Dajjal, when such Dajjalic ideology comes out and fights against the idea of God across the whole world, because that fight, if we take Nursi's interpretation against communism, for instance, it was a fight against all religions on earth. So Christianity totally lost against this war, for example. So, and since neither of the religions, neither Christianity nor Islam, was able to respond to this ideology, what happened? Yes, in its first day, it really made a huge impact and huge destruction. People become a lot unbelievers, especially in Europe, for instance. So on and so forth. You can come up with different interpretations of these 4 stages, and eventually it becomes like very mundane, its effect disappears, and when you come to the 90s, for example, you see that communism is not that much or effective at all as communism, but it is changing shape. Now it might be another ideology out there, which is, it's not that, well, it's all set now. Now we are strong enough, we have arguments from Quran with which we can fight against them. Then no, still new ideas are coming out. And are you ready to fight against them? So I guess still today, in this day and age, I am in need of this search for what is Dajjal of today and what is Sufyan of today. There's a distinction between Dajjal and Sufyan, and then who is Mahdi of today, or who are Mahdis of today. Not necessarily needs to be a single person, because Nursi also says a group of people, like his congregation, for instance. Then he comes to his last example about Gog and Magog, and he says, because the way Quran describes it is, there had been those like anarchic group, which means no rules. They are just attacking without any moral values. They are just taking away things. But there had been this Dhul Qarnayn, this figure of Dhul Qarnayn, like he king-like figure in the story of Quran, and then he builds a barrier between these guys, so puts them within limitation, so that these groups cannot transgress people. So, which means there would happen that, let's say for the case of communism, somebody will come up, somebody is going to build a wall in between such ideologies which are attacking belief or harming the people who are in need of guidance. And those people who are attacking them has no rules whatsoever, no religion, no rule, nothing, no moral values. Just live the moment sort of a mindset maybe. Just try to maximize your joy, or there is no truth whatsoever. Just many ideologies out there nowadays. So somebody comes up and tries to build a wall, tries to say that, because since Nursi in here is saying or interpreting it as an anarchic group, which means they have no boundaries. So he says, he sets a boundary, says that do not pass beyond this. You cannot pass beyond this. So such a thing might have happened in the past. Somebody built this wall, but today, am I still safe behind such walls? Or those Gog and Magog are, okay, they are defeated at some point by someone, but are they now still increasing in numbers? Like such ideologies are increasing in numbers and jumping now from above the wall and attacking you, then a new Dhul-Qarnayn needs to come up and needs to build another wall. So I guess it is putting this, calling me to be awake. And this is, if we now look at it from the very initial perspective, this is my education in this existence. The point is, it's not that, oh, God needs me to fight against them so that his religion is going to be victorious, but rather I am in need of getting to know my maker. This is why he creates me in such a setup, and it's for my good and for my well-being. I am supposed to learn, take this serious, and do my role properly in this existence. Sorry for this too long comment.
No, it wasn't long enough, I would say. Thank you for your comment. We also have, I think we have one serious comment in the chat that I'll try to so we have the ways, Ratik is saying, the ways American shoppers act in grocery stores during crises is something bordering anarchy. So like, just going off this, it reminded me of, I mean, what Brother Yusuf was saying, like this idea of anarchy that was in the past, but you know, here in the text, we're talking about Gog and Magog, and Nursi is saying how, like, you know, this society, or again, there will come tribes that will, close to doomsday, with an idea like anarchy, and it will overturn human civilization. And I was just thinking about like how we can, like with this coronavirus, like truly, like we can ascribe so much to it. Like we can literally say, like, you know, not literally, but we can like interpret it as like the Gog and Magog, how it's coming, and now anarchy is spreading type of thing. And at the same time, you know, there's, I mean, this coronavirus coming, and then just as like fear comes from Gog and Magog, like you have fear towards this tribe. But at the same time, you can almost even say that there's also Zul-Qarnayn in there. Like as you were saying, like Zul-Qarnayn building a barrier, and then like we could interpret that, you know, with belief or with the correct mindset, with realizing that, you know, this thing is happening by God's hand. Like the fear, like, you know, you build this barrier with belief that you don't allow that fear to overcome you, like this terror to overcome you. You know, you can have a fear in you, like it's a created emotion, and you can express it, but like the terror that this virus is acting by itself, that your life will go into non-existence based on this random happening. Like there's like a type of, because of belief, because of the message from people, or like let's say from your teachers, like, maybe, your teachers could be Zulkarnain, because they, with their teaching of belief, they save you from that fear by building that barrier. And then I'm just building other connections in my mind. But if you have comments, raise your hand. But another connection I made was like, and we already talked about how it's very similar to Dajjal, the idea that it starts somewhere, then it spreads through the universe and through the world, and then very quickly, and then but how the coronavirus, at one hand, it can seem like Dajjal, like it's spreading through. You can like give it such an interpretation, but at the other hand, you can almost see it as Mehdi as well, because for the ones that look correctly, it's like a reminder, it's like a teacher, it's something. One of Brother Breakham's emails, like he wrote it very nicely. I remember, it's like, it's like a beautiful creation, this thing that's come to teach us, and it's come to make us sit down maybe and think and remind us, and it is truly a creation, and with the correct mindset, it's a beautiful creation. So in that sense, it can be a Mehdi for us. So it's just so interesting how one event can be interpreted so many different ways, and how everything can like truly become like so deep in meaning, and how like these examples or these stories, like Dajjal and Gog and Magog, they can allow us to see things in this world, like be more conscious of the things that we witness in different ways. But now it's 9:30, so I can stop talking. Alhamdulillah. No, it's 9:30. Does anyone have final comments? Would like to share your final thoughts? I would be more than happy to listen. I think everyone would. I will take a quick pause and wait for your hands. Yes, Brother Bikram, please go ahead.
Maybe one, it's like a summary for myself, is that I should take such figures, I should take such days, like last day, or hour in Friday, night of power in Ramadan, or Mehdi Sufyan. I should take such figures and dates and times serious. Yes, like I have in this inclination approaching them through making some abstractions and saying that, oh, the Mehdi, it doesn't important, what it represented important, or Laylatul Qadr is not important, what it represents is important, and so on. This is a true approach to some extent. If it starts causing me lose my connection with these figures, with these persona, with these dates, times, and this abstraction, this making interpretation out of them, actually starting hindering, blocking me, blocking my journey. So I should take them more serious. I should be actively searching for Mehdi. I should be searching for Sufyan. I should be searching for Zulkarnain. I should be searching for a specific time in Friday. I should be. Rather than just, making an interpretation of them and say that, oh yeah, it's there for a wisdom, so the rest is not important. I'm losing something. I'm losing the mindset when it is Friday, start praying earlier and counting every second so that, I will pray and it will be accepted. I shouldn't lose such a mindset. So I should take such things more and more serious. And I should be worried about my doomsday. I should be worried about the doomsday of humanity. I should be worried about the doomsday of the entire universe. I should be. So again, taking such things serious, I guess, the one take-home message for myself.
Brother Yusuf, go ahead.
So I guess what I'm understanding from Brother Birkan's comment is, let's say if Laylatul Qadr, the night of power, is not determined within Ramadan, and then I understand that the wisdom behind this is because I should be searching for it. This is why it's not given. And if I search, and then if I search, I will find it. Meaning that the very fact that I am searching it will lead me to get out of my darkness and find the light. And once I reach to this understanding, it's some sort of an enlightenment, because something that used to be just like a day on the calendar now becomes starts carrying a deep meaning for me. But if I settle with this meaning only, and if you like, boast with it, and also settle with it and boast with it, saying that, oh, now I understand something that a regular person out there does not understand, so that's enough, then that means I already missed the point in a different way, as Brother Birkan was saying. If understanding this meaning is not taking me into action, then that means how good is understanding that meaning in the first place? Because it didn't benefit me. And if I'm boasting with it, then maybe it became harmful for me. So what I understand from Brother Birkan's saying, I should take it serious, what I understand is it should lead me to act according to what I understood. So it shouldn't only be a matter of just trying to intellectualize and make sense of it in the, let's say, intellectual sense of the word, like understand. But on top of this also, it should lead me to search for this night, search for this, or be worried about this day, so that it becomes part of my education. Otherwise, it will just become some intellectual knowledge, which is very likely to harm me more than it helped me. So in this regard, inshallah, may Allah make us be mindful of and act according to such conclusions, such interpretations.
I mean, thank you. So like this idea of seriousness, like it reminds me of like, because these are narrations from the Prophet, right? And we were talking about how we need to approach the Prophet. Like if we are actually seeking, after we come to a belief of God, if we're actually seeking for guidance, seeking for a teacher, seeking for one that can, help us in this place that we're in, then when he tells us these narrations, when he tells us about these end of time signs, like how seriously do we take his words? Is it that, yeah, it actually means this, and he's just trying to say this, and then, we just kind of leave it in the back of our minds. We don't truly seek for the guidance within it. Like if he's saying it, then as we've been saying, like it must have some guidance for me then, because he's our Prophet and that's what we're seeking from him. And so this idea of seriousness, I'm adding my own idea of what I understood from Brother Birkan. I will give the word to him in a bit. But what I'm understanding is that we should somehow be taking his words as more meaningful, like just Dajjal, it's not, sometimes, or Gog Magog, we hear these Sunday school stories, and we're like, oh, we laugh it off. We're just like, okay, I mean, I don't really think about it. I don't really care about it. Like, I just kind of ignore it. But then, these are words from the Prophet. These are narrations, so they must hold meaning for me. I should be seeking for meaning in them. And similarly with the Laylatul Qadr and all these other things, which maybe at first sight you're just wondering, what do these mean? Like, what are the hidden meanings in this? Why did he say this? Like 1 hour on Friday? Like, why Friday? Why not another day? Like, these are things that you should be seeking. Like, you should take his words seriously. And he did say Friday at the end. He didn't say Thursday or Wednesday, or he didn't say something else. So there are things that, why did he say this? And we should be seeking that. Brother Birkan, please go ahead.
Oh, like one word Yusuf used made my mind clearer. So Alhamdulillah, thank you. Thank you. So this searching for part is really important, because like when we come up with explanations, when we come up with the wisdom behind such narrations and say that, oh, matter represent this, X or Y, we are settled with it. Like we start feeling comfortable, like, oh, it's been solved. Another mystery checked. Now we understand what it means when we say Mahdi. And we stop there. we don't search for a figure, Mahdi figure in our life anymore. But it is there so that we search for it. Like as author says in his text, the companions of prophets, they were so, feeling the fire in their heart that they wanted to be part of the army of the Mahdi. So they wanted to fight with him or her. So I should be in the same mindset, like understanding what it represents shouldn't cause me settle with it and, continue living my life as before. I have an answer. If somebody asks me about Mahdi, I will say, oh, it represents X, and that's all. No, it should cause me searching for him or her and fighting with him against, Dajjal. I should be searching for it. I should be acting accordingly. I should be searching for my army. Where is it? Which army I'm going to be part of. So, for instance, the scientific explanations are passive, like a lazy explanations. Once something is explained, you are relaxed with it and you are settled with it. You say, oh yeah, this is the explanation of it. I know about it and it's not an extraordinary event anymore. Once we learn more about the coronavirus, for instance, when it will end, how it works, what is the vaccine, whatever, it goes away from our life. We don't think about it anymore, right? This is how it works. So explanations makes us passive and unacting. So explanations about Laylatul Qadr or Mahdi or Dajjal, whatever, doomsday, shouldn't be in the same way. Shouldn't take them out of our minds. So we don't need such explanations when it comes to Laylatul Qadr and so on.
Yes, Brother Yusuf.
And this also reminded me of the distance between belief and submission. I might arrive to a conclusion that, oh yeah, let's say you came up with an explanation to me regarding what is Laylatul Qadr, and you very beautifully explained me that if you search for it, this procedure of searching is what will make you get out of your darkness, so on and so forth. And I am 100% sure about it. Yes, now we are within the 3 months. Am I going to take this as an opportunity to search for it? And since a specific environment is approaching, and even now on top of this, because of this, if you like, soldier of God called Corona, we are being imprisoned in our houses, alhamdulillah. Now, am I going to benefit from Sha'ban and Ramadan to search for Laylatul Qadr? Is my conviction automatically converting into action? Is my belief converting automatically into submission, surrendering? There is a distance between them. And this is what I think this emphasis of searching for it, taking action in the sense that just live according to what you concluded. So, which means use your free will. It's not automatic at all. So just wanted to highlight this in this context, as I think it's a good fit here. So,
may guide us as always. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.